Hi there, thanks for joining me. It's Sarah with Ruffles and Rain Boots, and today we are making the Cozy Gnome sewing pattern. I finished it. I have tested it on about 8 different gnomes, so it's ready for you all. If you'd like to make him boop, stick around and join us. As always, please give that like button a smash so that I know you're here crafting with me. Go ahead and subscribe and ring that little bell for the notifications. So for our supplies and our pattern, everything is listed out. I'm using fleece and it's so soft, just like a minky fleece. And I'm using a long pile crinkle fur. So as you can imagine, we have a very large gnome here. These are really robust gnomes. They're very sturdy because we're using the body as the base for the hat, which is a really thing. I haven't seen any of these done like this before, and so I thought I'd offer the world something different. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this pattern. Don't worry if it's not exactly correct. There's a lot of forgiveness because what we're going to do is we're going to cut out all of our pieces and then we're going to clean them up. Okay, so speaking of cleaning up, what we're going to do is we're going to pin the seams per the patterns instructions. Now, just FYI, I have messed up fleece so many times. There is one side that should be on the out and one side that should be on the in. Just FYI, I mess it up all the time and then I have to unpin everything, so pay attention to that. We're going to pin the body and we're going to pin the hat. And what we're going to do now is take it over to our sewing machine. We are going to sew the seams and remember to start and end with a back stitch so that nothing comes undone. And we are going to leave the opening in the body for the turning, and all of that is identified on the pattern. I usually just put a pin there so I know not to sew it. All right, and now if you're new to sewing, we have to make a base, and all we're doing is we're just scooshing out the bottom and just pinning this around, and then we take that over to the sewing machine. And just FYI, if it doesn't match up exactly for you, like you cut it a little wonky, don't worry. This is extremely forgiving, this part of assembly. So you do want to back stitch, start and end with a back stitch on this one as well, because we don't want this coming off because we will have filler in here. Speaking of filler, in order to do that, we have to turn the pieces through that hole we left, so you can see it there. And you're just going to if you can't get it with your fingers, you're going to use a pencil, the end of a pencil, to get that tip of the body right down there. Pull off all your strings. Okay, so any fill will work. Rice, poly beads, beans, anything you like. I'm using rice here because everybody has it. But here, learn from my mistakes. Go get a funnel. I now have to clean all that up. So you're going to add about a cup of rice because we do want this to be a hefty base because, again, it is holding the entire gnome, including that hat. So we do want it to be sturdy, and we're going to fill up the rest of that body with polyfill. And just make sure you get an eraser and, kind of pop it up into that little piece at the top. And then in order to make the body nice and smooth, you're just going to roll it in between your hands after you put a bit of wire in. Now, I chose the wire because I do want to be able to still adjust the hat. You don't have to use it. That's 100% optional in the pattern. And now the part that I despise, and mine's going to look really bad because I don't like hand sewing. Like, I don't even really like sewing buttons back on. So just don't worry, this will be covered up. So as you can see, mine looks like Frankenstein stitched his own body up here. It's so bad. Sorry, but I'm not really good at this part. But you're going to do that for both of them. And it only took me 5 minutes, probably because I'm really bad at it. Don't know. But we're going to move on now to the braids and the beard. We're using crinkle fur here, and again, I'm making extremely wide braids. You do not have to make them this wide. I do have another tutorial on making braids with faux fur, with fabric, but basically I wanted very thick hair for both of these, and that meant a 1-inch braid piece for the girl and a very long, very tall beard for the guy. So the guy is pretty easy. We can just attach the beard. So we're going to make sure that we know where that hat's coming in. We're going to glue on that beard. You can sew it on, of course you can. And then we're going to pull down on that hat. Now you see we're going to flip up the brim. I'm using fleece so I don't have to create a hem. And then I do want to squinch it down so I can create those little like wrinkles. I like the wrinkles. Okay, so if you're new to making braids from faux fur, it's okay. Cut your strips. You can do between a 1/2 inch and an inch. These are an inch, obviously. You're going to secure one end, and then you're going to braid it like you learned how to do in elementary school. We are just going to make sure that we sort of turn that fabric in so that that part is not seen, right? The backing of the fur, we want that to be on the inside. And it's really good with this crinkle fur because it's so thick and so wild at that it really does help to cover it up. And so you're just going to do this twice. Now you can put anything on the bottom. I do recommend a twine or a string. I'm using embroidery thread here. You're just going to tie a couple knots. You can use a little accent bow or ribbon, anything you want, but you're going to want to tie something at the top as well. So you can kind of see here, I'm tying it up at the top. Just FYI, I glued one time and it came unraveled, so just go ahead and tie it. Now you're just going to glue your braids to the body. So we're going pretty far up. Again, you don't have to make them this robust. I just wanted to have a really different gnome than my non-sewing or than my no-sew gnome pattern. So here we put these really robust braids here. Okay, so the second part of her is just to create the hat, pull it down over the braids, flip up the brim, and create your little wrinkles. Isn't that cute? That's my favorite part. No, the noses are my favorite part. Oh, and speaking of noses, for the girl, we're going to add, you don't have to do this, I just added a little bit of bangs, and then we're going to put the nose right up under there. Doop. And then she looks done, and you can be done with her. However, I made her close. So we'll get to that in a second. For the guy, we're just going to lift up that hat, pop on the nose, and be sure to add a little bit of glue right at the very top. Squish it down so that hat doesn't go anywhere. I split the beard into a mustache, and he's done. Okay, so he's not done. I forgot. We're making arms. So in the pattern, it calls for you can either make arms or not. I wanted to show the difference between my two patterns, so I'm going to use the same little grapevine bauble that I used in that one. So I'm going to choose to make the arms. They're just rectangles, you can see, and we're going to cut those out. I've got a couple other pieces here as well in the light blue for the apron. So cut the apron pieces as well if you're making a little girl. And now it's time just to pin the arms. This is really fast. And don't worry, if you're a sewer, you will understand you will not be able to flip this, and that's okay. We're not flipping these arms, okay? So don't freak out that they're pretty thin. They will lie flat. We're going to put the seam against the body. Super easy. Now you also need to have hands, by the way, so go ahead and sew these, whip up some hands of, polymer clay is usually what I use, but you can use wood beads, anything you want. Okay, so here I'm actually showing this out of order. Sorry, I'm not very good at video editing. Can you tell? We cut the apron pieces. Now here's the big point about the apron. Don't backstitch it. We're going to create 2 lines of thread, and neither of them is going to be a backstitch, which just means you're not locking them in place, because instead of giving you a tutorial on pleating, real pleating, or making ruffles, all we're going to do is we're just going to do this pull method. It's super easy and it looks good. So if you're brand new to sewing, don't worry, this works for you. If you're not new to sewing, ruffle and pleat your heart out for the little girl apron. Okay, so all you're going to do is you're going to pull those in towards the center. It will pleat itself up, and then you'll just tie off those 2 strings on the end and cut them. Okay, so now we're going to put on her apron. So you can see there's a couple pieces here. We have 2 straps, a bib, the skirt that we just made, and then we'll have a tie. I'll just show it to you real quick. We're not going to tie it on yet, but you can see you're going to kind of pull it. There you go. So we're going to do that in just a second. So this part you can either sew on or glue on, whatever floats your boat. I am just tacking these 2 pieces in place over here. I'll do it for the other side as well. And again, this is all covered, so you don't have to have it even. But we're also going to do under the hat as well. So you can glue it or you can sew it. It's your choice. Okay, so now we're going to glue this on here or sew it on, doesn't matter. And we're just going to add our string or our tie, and then add a little hot glue in case you're like me and have a child. Okay, so for the arms, you see how we're just going to put the arms again, or the seam against the body? That's why you don't need to flip these. And so these arms are really long because I left them long so you can decide whether or not you're going to use a bobble like I am or not. So if you are using a bobble, just measure how long your arms need to be and then cut it off, add your hand, and then affix the whatever it is. This is a mini grapevine wreath that I'm using right into the center. So you can see with the guy, we're just putting the arms straight up under the hat, the seams against the body, adding his little hands and putting his little wreath in place. That's it. Or you can be like me and not stop by just adding a little heart onto her apron, but it would be really cool if you love to hand sew and you can sew something on there. So what do you think? That's it for this fun, very sturdy beginner sewing gnome. Let me know in the comments. As always, please hit that like button. It helps us so much. Subscribe to Ruffles and Rainbows for more crafty fun.